without taking further time or more time, I would like to introduce our first speaker, Mr. Bangarubabu Rongali, who is the Vice President for New Product Governance, Granules India Limited. Mr. Rongali has 29 plus years of experience in pharmaceuticals, APIs, and chemical fields related to research and manufacturing based industry. His professional expertise is in developing business growth plans, leading various cost improvement and operational excellence initiatives, and providing trainings to teams in the areas of operations, GMP, and EHS. He is a practitioner of chemical engineering and has gained expertise in chemical plant operations, manufacturing, delivery management, scale up, and technology transfer and process engineering. Mr. Rongali has worked with top consulting firms like Accenture, McKinsey, Mercer, Goldratt, EY, etc. in organization transformation projects and delivering technical process excellence projects. He has experience in APIs, bulk drugs, end-to-end project delivery, including portfolio selection, scale-up, validations, DMF filing, and commercialization. He has set up multiple greenfield manufacturing plants for APIs, intermediates, and fine chemical manufacturing. His experience lies in managing large pharma clients across the globe. Earlier, he has also worked in reputed organizations such as United Phosphorus, Dr. Reddy's, GVK Biosciences, TCG Life Sciences. We welcome you, Mr. Rongali. Over to you, sir. Sir, you are muted. Yeah.
Hello.
Yes, sir. We can hear you.
I'm sorry. Thank you, Shivani, for your nice introduction and giving me opportunity of talking to my fellow colleagues across the pharma world who are participating into this session today. And this subject is solvents is very wide subject, but I think one of the important factors which has attracted me to participate in this session is that greener solvents usage. So green is always very close to my heart because I don't think that without taking a participation journey into the green, we would be able to exist in this. I think in the universe. So I thought I would share some of my experiences in the industry about using the greener solvents and opportunity to make a practice of using greener solvents across the manufacturing of pharma. So thank you so much, and I'll just share my presentation. You're able to see this?
Yes, sir.
No?
Yes, sir. We can see it.
Thank you so much for confirmation.
You can keep it in the. Yes, sir. This is fine. Yes, sir.
Yeah. So my first slide is on to introduction. Where we are talking about use of petrochemical solvents. All of us know about petrochemical solvents like methanols, ethanols, and IPAs and all benzenes, everything. So use of petrochemicals is very key to the most of the chemical process. We can't even imagine that there is a chemical process without using petrochemical. But we all have to be cognizant about very severe implications on the environment which these solvents are making impact. So the idea of green solvent implies to the reduce environment impact resulting from its use in the processes. So where from this idea came, the green solvent, what does it mean? We will talk about in the next few minutes. But I think idea of green solvent implies to the reducing the environmental impact resulting from its use in the processes. So what are green solvents? So why we are talking about green solvent? What are these green solvents? So the solvents which are environmental friendly, the solvents which have been derived from bio-based, and they're derived from processing of agriculture crops and plants and then animals. So These are some of the solvents which are called green solvents, and more importantly, these are alternatives to the petrochemical solvents. And of course, we need to have least expensive solvents. Otherwise, the processing of industry becomes very difficult. We have been seeing that solvent usage has become, like Shivani has told already, solvent solvent usage has become very high into the not only the chemical process but also in the entire petrochemical industry, and today in the manufacturing industry of the pharmaceuticals, starting from the API and to the formulations. Without solvent, you can't even imagine if there is a process in the pharmaceutical industry. We know that how critical solvents are, and these solvents are not pure enough. Obviously, it has an impact on your purity of the product, quality of the product, and there are a lot of regulatory guidelines as why uh, the impact of solvents and all. But meantime, we also have to be very careful in selecting these solvents, because these solvents leaves a lot of emissions in the environment, and the solvents leaves a lot of footprints onto the environment. So the green solvents are like, we should have a green solvents which are like 100% biodegradable. It is also important that they are easy to recycle, so that your consumption is very less. They are also important that these solvents are non-corrosive in nature. There are many solvents which are very corrosive, and because of the corrosion, you have the equipments which are spoiling, and processes are getting spoiled. And main importantly, non-carcinogenic. So this is the biggest subject. My friend Dr. KMV will speak after this. How important to use the pure solvents in the processes, because nowadays the carcinogenic properties, genotoxic properties in the medicines is become very important subject, and regulatory authorities like USFDA and EDQMs, and globally they are very concerned about what kind of carcinogenic properties are there in the medicines, because while we are employing to use the medicines for various diseases, it is also important to see that the side effects are very minimum. If you have the medicines with significant carcinogenic properties in your final product in the medicine, it is also leading to a lot of side effects. So I think the regulatory authorities have been very strict onto this, that they need to minimize the carcinogenic properties. That's why the regulatory uh, bodies have put very stricter guidelines onto the specifications of the solvents as well as the final product. So I will come to the subject where how do you select these solvents and all, but I think having non-carcinogenic properties is very important, and it makes sense to select a solvent which is maybe more costly, but less carcinogenic. And the other one we have been talking about today, that greener solvent, the solvents which gives emissions, and then and it causes for a lot of ozone depletion. So the green solvents are essentially have to have properties like this. So very easy to recycle, non-corrosive, non-carcinogenic, and then non-ozone depleting. There are solvents which are called green solvents. Sometimes it is important to understand what are these green solvents. Supercritical fluids. You all understand what are the supercritical fluids. It can be the liquid or gas used in a state above critical temperature and critical pressure, where gases and liquids coexist. So this is called supercritical condition. In the supercritical condition, some of the solvents like water and the other CO2 gas, they they become very nice solvents. They have a better properties in the supercritical condition, so they have a more solubility to the other solutes. And the other category of green solvents are aqueous solvents. Aqueous solvents, we all understand that these are water based, mixture of water and all. If one of the solvent is water, then we call it as aqueous solvents. There are salt solutions, there are acid solutions which involves water. They possess very nice properties in terms of solvents, and their emissions are also very less. Another category of green solvents is ionic liquids. So the definition of ionic liquids, we all know that the consists solely of ions having melting points very below the room temperature, close to or below the room temperature. These are considered to be greener because the vapor pressures are virtually zero. I mean, so they are very minimum are low. So imidazolium ionic liquids are the ionic liquids which are frequently used as the solvents in chemical process like liquid extractions and all in the processes. So extractions are very critical process into the unit operations of uh, uh, bulk drug manufacturing, API manufacturing. Some of the examples are like methylbromide, hexafluorophosphate, tetrafluoroburate, and all these kind of things, imidazole salts. So lot of us, while selecting the solvent, we don't even review some of the available solvents in the world. We all know are very used to have the properties, selecting the peoples like alcohols and ethers and alkanes. But of late, we should understand that we need to we need to spend little more time in selecting the solvents right from the design stage, right from the development stage, so that in the manufacturing it will become very easy to select. So if you see, sorry, I think. So some of the examples of green solvents, you see that we spoke about ionic liquid, we spoke about supercritical fluids, we have fatty acid esters. So biosolvents like bioethanol and all, which comes from nowadays, ethanol, we're taking it from biodegradable mass. So biosolvents like ethanol, fusible solids, hydrogenated, specialty solvents like ethyl lactate. So we're talking about ethyl lactate has got a lot of nice properties. It can be a good solvent, to use in the bulk drug industry. Polymerizing liquids, liquid polymers like polyethylene glycol and terpenes. So okay, we may not be able to use all these solvents definitely into the only bulk drug lab, but when we are talking about green solvents, we have been touching upon little larger subject of using in the chemical process now, not just confining ourselves to only API or bulk drug industry. Water is the universal solvent, cheapest solvent, and we know that it is how green it is. There are multiple processes. We know that it's not easy to use water in every process, but of late we can think of uh, making the solutions with water and mixture of solvents and solvent mixer with water can always help us in becoming a better solvent, better greener solvent, and water in the supercritical condition becomes supercritical fluid, becomes the best one of the best solvents to use in the process. We know that green solvents application is very important, and it's not just limited to the pharmaceutical industry, but it has been used everywhere across the globe. Processing of polymers, biocatalysis processes, so and then petroleum industry and extraction, purification of bioactive compounds. So there are a lot of applications where green solvents can be used. But I think today's our discussion is how effectively we can use green solvents in pharmaceutical industry, especially into API industry. So that's where we are going to focus in next two slides or so. This is a slide where though the slide is very simple and with 5 bullets, but I think I want to spend a little more time onto this slide where we discuss very close to the API manufacturing processes. We know that the factors considered to be considered while selecting solvents in the API manufacturing process have to be discussed thoroughly. Why solvent at all? The first point I was making is that even before we are selecting a solvent, the question has to be that why solvent at all? Do you really need a solvent? If you can eliminate the solvent, so in the green principles, we know that we are talking about green chemistry principles and green engineering principles. Before even going to green chemistry and green engineering principles, let's talk about that. Do we need to use solvent at all? So when you can have a reaction which is neat without even solvent, if you can get the reaction done with, and if you can get the product out and to be used in the next step, I think that's the welcoming step. And at least in our industry, we have been incorporating these principles while selecting the products, while making the design of the development of the product. In Granules, we have been focusing on making the development strategy of the product right from beginning, where we talk about uh, what is the atom efficiency, what is the atom economy, and route of selection itself gets the solvent selection as part of it. And we talk about designing an E factor, where the selected solvent is more green in nature, it gets more bonus points. If your solvent is not green, and if you are bound to use some of the solvents which have emissions which are more and all, you bound to get a penalty point to the selection of that always. So not that bonus point or penalty point is important, but you're trying to inculcate the culture of looking green, selecting greener solvents, selecting greener route of synthesis, selecting greener processes into the DNA of the people who are sitting in the development. Because once development is done, in the manufacturing, you have very limited opportunities to change the solvent or process anything. Though people talks about API manufacturing process have to be greener and they should use greener solvent, but actually it starts from the development. That's where I request the industry specialists and the organization specialists who are part of R&Ds should focus on to the introducing green solvents, introducing the green chemistry principles, introducing the green engineering principle. While the products are in R&D, it's very difficult, very tough. I can use the word almost impossible to change the solvent or change the chemical after it goes into the execution of the process. Unlike other processes, other industry like petrochemical or fine chemicals and all, pharmaceutical industry is regulated by the lot of authorities because it's part of drug manufacturing, it's part of US FDA, it's part of drug control authorities. You have stricter guidelines, you have stricter norms with respect to change of the process and all. Hence, it's important that people focus more onto the selection of the solvents, the selection of the route of selection of the processes, while in the product is in the R&D itself. That's why my first question is that solvent. Why do you need solvent at all? Why can't it be neat reaction? If you have a neat reaction, you know that what are the benefits. You can just get the best out of it. I know it's not possible for every reaction, but I think there are efforts we are trying to impose onto these kind of efforts into this route of synthesis selection. Okay, so once you say that okay, solvent is needed, the reaction is tough, we can't have a neat reaction, then if you select the solvent, can you dilute, can you make the volumes as minimum as possible? So once again, it's important that when you have even though it is recyclable, let's say the next point is coming recyclable, reusable. Even if this is recyclable and reusable, but if you can use the minimum quantity for the dilution, again it will improve your productivity like anything. It will decrease emissions, it will improve your productivity, it will improve your plant capacities. Dilutions are very important. Just that just because you get a very uh, free hand to select the solvent, and your reaction volumes are critical, you can't have more dilutions in the solvents. You can have more dilution during your workup and all, but during the reaction, if you have minimum dilution, that will help you to get best output of it. Green solvents, eco solvents, water, unless until you say that no, my reaction doesn't proceed with water, water is very harmful to reaction, your first choice should be the water, and then water based solvents. And then we spoke about green solvents, which in the previous slides. Recycling and reuse. Green solvent, use of green principle doesn't stop at by selecting green solvents, by selecting the best solvent, but it also important that you when you use these solvents, how much you can recycle. 90%, 95%, why not 99%? I have come across one of the conferences where I was speaking to the panel member of Central Pollution Control Board some years ago. He was a retired judge, and he was part of CPCP board member. He came to our previous organization, for discussion. So we were talking that we said, what is your how much you recycle, how much of solvent you recycle usually. I said 90-95%. He said, okay, why not 100? See, this question is very simple, but I think it answers very nicely that why not 100%? 5% of solvent not recycle and reuse, and across the industry, how much it goes to, and how much emissions it goes to, how much environmental footprint it leaves to your spoil your environment, and what happens to it. It's very important that all of us focus on to these areas. All of us discuss this thoroughly during our meetings with the team, discussions with the manufacturing teams. We must attempt to recycle close to 100%. And believe me that there are technologies, there are platform technologies, there are processes which can help you to recycle maximum percentage, if not 100, close to 100. But what are our efforts to that? We always think that recycle is okay, whatever the best recycling is possible, I am doing it. But it's not just best recycling. We always focus on the product yields, where you have more money as an outcome. But if you recycle your solvents completely and 100%, it has significant impact on your product quality, product output, and on your environmental which is around you. Of course, reuse. So lot of emphasis. I just wanted to tell here a couple of minutes that most of the pharmaceutical industry and AP industry, people have focused on recycling the solvent, recovering the solvent, recovering the solvent. But when it comes to reuse, very less people does this. They just think that reusing in the process, it will always have an impact on my product quality. So instead of taking a risk at that stage, they prefer to keep that send it outside, and then get it purified to make it equivalent, and then bring it back as a fresh solvent. But purifying it to making it 100% a pure product and reusing is not going to help you when you compare it with recycling, establishing the recovery and reuse within your own factory, within your own processes. So, but R&D people who are in the development, if they focus on recovering the solvent, reusing with the established specification, you need to establish the specification right from the beginning. I don't think that every process will have impact of, if you have a 5% of impurities or 2% of impurities in your solvent, it's going to impact your product quality. But absence of the studies, if you don't study that in your development stage, obviously it will raise the questions to the your auditors and your quality people in the manufacturing processes, that if that is not addressed, what will have to have my impurity profile. As I told in the beginning of this talk, that my next speaker is going to focus on why should you use pure solvents in the pharma industry. But I have questioned this. I'm challenging this even in one session before that. What will happen if you don't recycle completely the solvent? What kind of impact it is leaving on your environment and your processes? If you don't establish the specification appropriately right from the beginning, how you are going to ensure that in the processes? So third process, I'm leaving it to the team at the R&D stage itself, that your recovery, recycling, and reuse must be established in the R&D stage itself. Emissions and method of disposal. I want to use this in the last because my target is that I should have zero emissions. My target is that I completely recover and reuse. But in case of I fail to do that, if 1 or 2%, if I have to do some emissions, if I have to do some disposal, what is the best processes I'm deploying it to treat those emissions in the air before it is released to atmosphere? What kind of methodology I'm incorporating to dispose them safely? before it reaches to the environment. This is also very important, and I, I would recommend that right from the selection of the solvent until the treating the emissions and the method of disposal, it has to be a complete framework which need to have in the place for everyone right from the selection of the product itself. This framework, I'm not going to give you framework upfront here that this is how we should assess and this is how we should, but these are some of the guidelines how you do this assessment framework, because I can say that okay, my solvent is green, okay, but if I have a process in which if I have options of 3 or 4 solvents, I would like to understand which is more greener, which is more green solvent. So one has to, the industry experts have to think of this while they're developing the new product or new process before it really goes into the manufacturing. You must incorporate this assessment, a framework to assessment where you do the environmental assessment of all the solvents which you are choosing with respect to the specific hazards, substance specific hazards. Some could be very highly flammable, some could be good solvent, but some could be when you carcinogenic emissions. Some are may not be carcinogenic, but they are more hazardous than other solvents. So, and some products in when they're reacting with other components, they release some kind of an emissions, some kind of a byproducts. So you need to assess your solvent in terms of everything. What is the substance specific hazard, what is the quantity of emission it is giving, what is the recyclability, which spoke about this entire life cycle management of this solvent. Once we get it from the vendors, manufacturers, till it employed into the process until it comes out, the entire life cycle management of a solvent should be uh, assessed in a framework, and then select your the best green solvent. This is what I recommend to the industry. I've been trying to push this, employ this where I am working right now. The Granules company has been trying to introduce a lot of green technologies in terms of new processes, platform technologies, and I'm happy to be part of that journey where we are trying to employ the new technologies and new processes, which involves more of a green solvent, more of a green chemistry, green engineering principles, green processes, even biocatalytic processes, and where you don't even use synthetic routes of processes. So the framework of environmental assessment is very important. I have got complete framework of doing this, and the attendants today are you can reach out to me directly or via the organizers World of Chemicals. If you want, somebody needs the help in their organization or in their area of work, they need some guidance on how to do this, design this framework. I'm happy to help with the time constraint of 20 minutes. I thought it's not very wise to put up that framework here, but I think I have got very nice framework on how do you assess the greenness of the solvent, greenness of your process, greenness of your development route of synthesis. So we can always help in that. So when you do this kind of framework, when you do this kind of assessment via this framework, you often come across very interesting facts that sometimes like simple alcohols, ethanols, and alkanes are environmentally preferable solvents in comparison to your dioxin or acetonitrile. So knowing it is different, but you put up into framework and put all this quantification, then you understand that your ethanol is better than your acetonitrile, your heptane or hexane is better than your THF, your methanol is better than formaldehyde. So I know that what is more suitable to your process, you will always choose those solvent. But when you put up that into the screening of the solvents greenness, then you will find some interesting facts, and sometimes it will be very useful to you use those examples. I have given just a couple of examples here, but when you do this framework, we have found out a lot of interesting facts that which is green solvent and why it is. So methanol water or ethanol water, we know that usually when you do this mixture and all, it is difficult to separate and recover complete methanol and complete ethanol. So, but their preferred solvents, they have got more better properties of solvents when compared to pure alcohol and some other propanol water mixtures. So you unless you put these solvents into the framework, get your greenness factor, get your greenness eco factor, and compare the number objectively, you will not understand that which is better solvent. So my suggestion to the team, my fellow colleagues, that to understand this philosophy of greenness in a holistic manner, not just in silos, in a holistic manner where you start applying your green chemistry principle, your green engineering principles, which is inclusive of selecting a solvent right in the beginning of the development, right in the beginning of the selecting the route of synthesis and under the process, so that you're not transferring the non-greenness of your process or your chemicals to the manufacturing industry, and it becomes very tough for them to really avoid or replace the solvent with a better solvent in the future. So with this, I think the time is done. So I'm given only 20 minutes on this greenness and green subject. We can talk for hours together. But my conclusive remark is that it's no more a choice that I should use the green solvent or normal solvent. It's a more of a social and environmental commitment all of us must take, that I will go green, and I must go green. So with these conclusive remarks, I conclude this session, and I'm happy to take any questions during the question and answer sessions. If not today, you can reach out to me, or you can reach out to Shivani, the organizers. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer even on the later date. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, sir. And just a few recap thoughts I had. So it was very important that you brought out those points of greener solvents. It should be easy to recycle, 100% biodegradable, non-corrosive, non-carcinogenic, and non-ozone depleting. It has become really more important to, even if it's a bit costly, but it is less carcinogenic. At the end of the day, I think emissions norms and all are becoming more stricter. So this is something that industry will have to look into it. And then it was very important for us to understand the recycling, the reuse and recovering of green solvents, the whole concept, because emissions and method of disposal again is adding to the environment concerns. And it was very important for you to point out that there is a framework for assessing environmental assessments of solvents, which is very important. I think the industry can definitely make use of it and say maybe use it for their own operations. So we hope that this is something that people will consider in the future also. Thank you so much, sir, and it was nice interacting with you. We'll move on to the